Welcome to Triumph and Disaster, a show dedicated to manly creativity and culture. Brought to you by your host, Cameron McHarg.
Hey guys, it's Cameron McHarg, and we're back for another episode of Triumph and Disaster. And this week is kind of a short and sweet one with Chris Gore. So Chris Gore is he's kind of around everywhere in sort of the film and comic book and sort of, geeky world. He actually founded Film Threat magazine, which actually reviewed my first short film. It was like one of my first reviews. And then it went south. Magazines had a really hard time for quite a while there, and it disappeared. And then there was a big Kickstarter for it, and it made a resurgence. So Film Threat is back out and around. And I actually had a book of his. This is how I knew him first. Actually, I had a book of his about film festivals. Back in the day, he was sort of the go-to guy for which festivals were cool, and he's been on he used to host a bunch of TV shows like an IFC, and he's just all over the place. He's sort of everywhere. So it's a short and sweet one. We did just like about 30 minutes. We just met right before a party that he was going to have. It was sort of a pre-Comic-Con party at Meltdown Comics on Sunset Boulevard, which is a really, really cool comic book store. If you live in LA, you probably know where it is. But it was just funny. We were in the back. There were all those guys smoking weed and random sort of kind of semi-famous Comic-Con type guys who do voices for various TV shows and cartoons, and his sidekick for his podcast, the Film Threat podcast, kind of rolled up and talked for a second. So it's just a lot of fun. 30 minutes of Chris Gore, Triumph and Disaster. All right, we're on.
Cool, ready?
Yeah, we're recording behind the Meltdown Comics with a bunch of comic nerds smoking weed about 20 feet behind us. And we've known each other for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, we have. Well, it's weird. Like, you could just smell the marijuana smell, like wafting.
Almost. Yeah, it's that thick.
Yeah. It's and I think some people, it's kind of like one of those classic cartoons.
like the sandwich or whatever.
Yeah, the wolf will smell
and
like
then, a steak or something,
and then just start floating, and the nose will lead to where the pie is cooling on the windowsill.
Wasn't that the Bugs Bunny and that monster, that big red-headed monster? It was on Ether. It was an Ether. That's what it was.
It's happened in a million cartoons, but it makes me want to. Who cools their pie on a windowsill? Like, just I don't know. It's strange. So
all right. So
so we've known each other all of 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So let's just assume that people don't know who you are in this too. So we're gonna start from there.
I would say that's a great assumption. I would say most people don't know who I am, so that's good.
All right. So. You know what? I had a book on my shelf a million years ago that was by you.
Which
one? It was like a film festival book.
I did 4 editions of a book about film festivals.
Just revised it.
Yeah. Just it's one of those things like. The thing that would bug me is I go to film festivals and I'd see a really good movie made by some young artist who didn't know anything about how to promote himself. Yeah. Or, now we live in an entire culture where
it's a little different than
we live in an entire culture where people in their fucking 20s talk about their fucking brand. And so I think maybe that,
and it's them.
Yeah. And it's which I find irritating, but if you are trying to promote yourself as a filmmaker, you do have to find a way to sell yourself. And so this is when people didn't think in those ways. I wrote the first edition of the book in the late 90s. So I think the last edition came out in I
think that's when I had it.
2010 or so. But yeah, so that's one of the projects that I've done. But I don't even know how, when people know me, it's like, well, how do you know me? Because they're any number of 7 different ways where you might have known me.
Yeah, because you have your hand in a lot of different shit, but it's mostly movie related.
Mostly movie related.
So the book, and what was the other thing? Oh yeah, so
we haven't even said who I am.
What's your name, dude?
Chris Gore. Wait, did you introduce me?
I didn't. I don't think I did.
I didn't even say most people don't know.
But I'll have an introduction.
Say my name.
This thing.
This is like a guessing game.
So who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
So what was it? It was Film Threat. I had a short film that was reviewed on Film Threat before it disappeared.
Oh wow! Well, now it's back.
And now it's back.
Well, that's
right.
That's a good thing.
I want to touch on that for a second.
Sure.
By the way, did all those old are you able to retrieve any of that old shit? The old stuff?
Most of it. I mean, some. Really? Here's the weird thing: is that I mean,
because it was a good review too. It was now it's gone. I got a 4-star review.
Well,
now it's gone.
let's get out of the way the ways people might know me. They might know me from a magazine I created called Film Threat.
Yeah.
I also did other magazines. I did a magazine about video games. This is all in the 90s. Did a magazine called Wild Cartoon Kingdom about cartoons. But Film Threat is mostly what I've known for. And then sort of later I started to write books about movies. Wrote a book about film festivals. I wrote a book called The 50 Greatest Movies Never Made. I've written countless articles for other magazines about mostly sort of where nerddom and film movie geekdom existed.
Right.
Film Threat was sort of the early precursor to all that stuff. Now we live in like geek culture where geeks are celebrated, but
it was before Comic-Con.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, before it was huge.
Before Comic-Con blew up and became not as fun anymore. But and then I've made some films myself. I co-wrote and produced a movie called My Big Fat Independent Movie, which was basically a parody film. And then
what are they like riding convertibles in the desert or something?
Yeah, it was just took the plot of every weird indie movie and just kind of mashed it into one, and then got a bunch of comedian friends of mine to be in it. But then other people know me. So some people know me from writing because they have read, and then other people know me from television, where my first thing I did a show called The X Show that was like my first regular gig for FX, and then I did another show for FX. I did a show for IFC called Ultimate Film Fanatic, but most people know me from G4 TV Attack of the Show, where I covered movies. So some people know me from TV, some people know me from Film Threat, and then, yes, I have been mildly successful in many things. And I'm saying from zero to mildly successful.
That's how you've made your name.
In a wide variety of things, where the other day I was at D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, which D23 is like Comic-Con for Disney nerds, and someone recognized me from my Instagram. So
wow,
I thought that was kind of funny. It's
above everything else.
Well, if you look me up, we're just going to get this out of the way. If you look me up, I'm just that Chris Gore on everything.
Okay.
So if you just look up that Chris Gore on Instagram, Tumblr, on Twitter, whatever, or Film Threat, FILMTHREAT, and the Film Threat podcast. I've done. I used to do a podcast called Pod Crash, which was every episode of the show I was a guest on a different show. And that was the premise for my show.
And the Film Threat podcast, I have to admit, I haven't heard that one yet. And is he the guy?
What's that? Yeah, my co-host.
Sidekick guy?
Yeah, as we were just getting ready to start, my co-host Anthony Ray Bench pulls up. But yeah, the Film Threat podcast, we relaunched it in January, and it's been weekly ever since January 2017, and it's been weekly ever since.
I'll put a link up then for it.
Yeah, put a link up for the podcast
for sure.
Check it out. It's like sometimes it's themed, sometimes we review movies that came out that week, and I see. Here's what I like about what you're doing. You're doing this super guerrilla style. I love this. We're recording this.
Yeah, not everybody knows.
Yeah, in the
the
back
way that we're doing this
in the back of Meltdown Comics, on Sunset Boulevard. We're just recording this podcast.
Yeah, we're not in a studio.
See, I like that. I don't like these podcasts where it's like you got to be in the studio and the sound's got to be perfect.
Well, dude, I don't
and
like
you
it.
sit
I
with
don't
the
like
cans on,
slick. Fuck
and then
that.
you've got the glass window and there's a
and the headphones and the.
You don't need any of that shit.
What's that thing with the little protectors? You don't spit on the mic.
Yeah, exactly. You got the.
What do you call that?
The mic. Yeah, whatever. That's the thing so you don't pop. Yeah. So which we just did. But like I just like that. I'll pull out my iPhone and we'll start recording an episode of the podcast. Like after we saw a movie at the theater, we'll walk out of the theater and in the bar area or whatever, we just start recording the show.
Yeah, that's the way I like it too.
I like it. I like it sort of like it's almost like a reality show in audio form.
Well, it's just not pretentious bullshit. It's just dudes talking. It's not like some kind of canned.
Don't make those assumptions. We might get pretentious every once in a while. But one thing I've never. Sometimes, if I have like a really, my opinions are not really pretentious, but I do think.
But film nerds, get a little serious sometimes about their Star Wars.
I am one of those people that does get a little serious when warranted, when it's necessary. But I don't take myself seriously. I think that's sort of consistent with anything I've done, whether it's a film or a TV show or a podcast or a book or a magazine. I don't take myself seriously, but I actually take what I'm doing very seriously. So whether I'm covering film or making a movie, I take that all very seriously. But myself, fuck that.
Yeah.
No, life's too short.
How did you get? So you're from Michigan, aren't you?
Yeah. I grew up right outside of Detroit in a town called Royal Oak.
Campbell and Sam Raimi.
Same area. Well, they grew up in they didn't grow up. They grew up in this area like Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, but they had offices in Ferndale, which are right next to Royal Oak. And Ferndale's now this like hip area of of Michigan, just outside of Detroit. But it's like, yeah, Ferndale, Royal Oak, all that stuff.
Well, how that
Sam
happened.
Raimi lent me a camera actually when I was in college
You're
to do this
fucking kidding me.
college movie. Oh my god, the movie was such a piece of shit. It was
That's
such
an amazing story, though.
It was
already.
a 1 hour 16mm movie I made called The Cool Teenager from the Planet X.
Is that anywhere to be seen?
I think I have a copy of it on VHS.
Oh,
but I'm too.
you gotta digitize
It's such a
that.
pretentious piece of shit. Oh my god!
Is it
It's-
black and white with a
no,
sad
no,
clown?
No, but like there's a scene where this guy takes it's this punk rock guy with like a mohawk, and he's like having sex with his girlfriend on a Nazi flag, and like
course.
there's just all this. I was basically just anything that I thought would piss people off, I put in this
Okay,
movie.
okay.
So it
Look
was
at this.
It was incredibly pretentious. Oh my god! I think we had one public screening of it. So but I was, I think everyone goes through that pretentious phase in college where they make
when
like
you discover stuff for the first time. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you gotta like, oh, I'm the first one to
Put
think
some
of this.
symbolism in there.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a tracking shot following the person's feet as we walk up to.
Let's get out of the car.
To me, I had a film professor at Wayne State University, which was a commuter school. I didn't have the traditional college experience where I like went to a frat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I went to this commuter school and I worked like 3 jobs, and I have an interesting story about college. I'll tell you in a second, but it was just a school where you could focus on like just doing work. And I feel like there's this sort of, I had this film professor who basically told us that if we put a shot just like I described, where you followed someone's feet, you would instantly fail. He said you were not allowed to put that shot in any shot or anything similar to that in any movie that you made for him, for his class. And I thought that was cool.
Kind of badass.
He was like throwing out restrictions, and I thought that was, at the time, I thought he was a total dick. But now that I think about it, it's like, that's cool. But what I did, so I'm a college dropout, by the way, even though I've written books that are required reading in college.
That's funny.
So, but the quick story behind that was I wanted to go to USC. USC Film School. I really wanted to go because that's where
Didn't even have a
that's where George
signature. You didn't wanna
Lucas,
do the
Spielberg,
whatever, NYU or wherever.
No,
USC.
I wanted to go to USC. So because that's where my heroes at the time went. Spielberg, Lucas. I love Star Wars, the early Spielberg movies.
Yeah.
And it was too expensive. I mean, like I grow up. See, the weird thing is when you're growing up, as long as your parents love you, you don't give a fuck how much money you have. I didn't really know that my family was poor until later. It's just like, oh yeah, like I have the same sort of 2 pairs of pants, and I didn't realize I was like
It's a
sort
similar
of
experience. Yeah.
I kind of grew up poor, but I didn't care.
Right.
I was loved. What difference does it make? So, but I really wanted to go to those schools, and I just found out like, oh my god, it's all rich kids and political, and there was no way I was gonna have any chance to get into USC. So I had my mom, we were on this trip out on the West Coast to visit my uncle, and I asked my mom, she drove me to the campus of USC. I went to the bookstore and I bought as many of the books that I could in the film program. Then I made a list of all the other books I couldn't afford to buy at the time. I spent over $200 on books, which was a lot for me.
Like $200,000.
I read all the books that all the students going to USC read for the film program because I wanted to have the knowledge that they had, even though I knew I couldn't afford it. Finally, I was so sick of working 3 jobs going to this commuter college where I feel like college then is a scam. I feel like it really is even more so a scam now, where you pay a lot of money to buy books at an overpriced rate, then to read the books, regurgitate the contents of those books to a professor who will check that you read those books. Now, that's not true across the board. There's some great professors out there. That's the old punk rock, arrogant me. Wait a second, I haven't changed much. But I just thought so I dropped out. I said, I'm just going to read all the same books that they read, and I'm going to start this magazine, this punk rock magazine called Film Thread. I started it when I was like 18 years old.
I was just going to ask.
It was like
holy shit,
punk
really?
rock. Yeah, it was like a zine.
Yeah,
in the 80s. It was like a zine. And then it just sort of like developed. It went from like, I think we did like 8 or 9 issues of the zine, the Xeroxed one. Then from that, it was like, ooh, let's get it printed with a color cover on newsprint. It just kind of moved up the scale. So, but yeah, no, I'm a college dropout that I just read the books that were required in college. But I feel like even now, like, okay, then that was kind of a risky thing for me to do, not have a degree or whatnot. But now I think more than ever with YouTube,
you don't need it as much.
TED Talks, with
absolutely.
like, online courses. I mean, depending on how ambitious you are, because look, I've hired college graduates, and I got to say, they're no smarter than kids that have dropped out of college, in my opinion. right? It's all like, what you got inside you. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't know. I feel like now, especially, I feel like these kids getting out of college with, burdened with debt.
Massive debt. Like 6 figures.
Yeah, like for years with no guarantee that what they paid for is going to lead to the result that they would like, which is, a decent career and a decent living. I think that's all anyone wants, right?
It's not the same anymore. It doesn't mean as much as it did like 20 years ago.
It doesn't mean as much.
That was part of like almost a guaranteed thing. You go to school, you get a good job. Now it's like you go to school,
Nope.
you're in debt and you're fucked.
No, I mean, you got to get a master's degree based. Yeah.
Unless it's like you're a doctor or something.
That was the only thing I would say. Like, because I would say to whenever I would just give public speaking, do public speaking at colleges, I would say don't do what I did.
Yeah.
I feel like that path is not exactly the best way to go, but I feel like also if you're going to be a doctor or a scientist, you really do need a professional education.
But like liberal arts stuff, you're not...
In the arts, you could get just as good of an education by watching movies, listening to DVD commentary, reading a lot of books, reading some really good film critics out there, and there are few and far between. It's mostly these YouTube...
Do you have any favorites?
Off the top
of your head?
Devin Faraci. Devin Faraci from Birth, Death Movies. He's a controversial figure because he's just a controversial figure.
Yeah.
But I like the people that are insightful and actually have ideas and challenge. I could give a shit if they agree with me or not. I'm not offended if somebody didn't like the latest Spider-Man movie.
Right.
How does that affect me?
Right.
But I feel like we live in kind of a pussified culture now where people are just like, well, your opinion... Shut up. I love diversity of opinion. I love to engage in a conversation where someone doesn't agree with me. How is that a bad thing?
It's fun to do that with movies.
That's the only way you learn. It's the only way you learn is if you engage in conversation.
Echo chambers aren't really helpful.
Echo chambers, and we live in an echo chamber culture where people are unfriending on Facebook, and who fucking cares?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, whatever. I don't know. So that kind of thing does bug me.
So speaking of how shit's way different now than it used to be, and
I'm an old punk.
But so we had the magazine,
right?
Almost most magazines they just weren't making it anymore. So
print died in like the late 90s.
Right.
I mean, a lot of that had to do with a couple things. One, advertising dollars dried up, and then secondly, I have a theory about this. The U.S. government did not allow replenishable hemp to be grown to be used as paper.
Yeah.
So deforestation was really the only way to create, print, right?
Yeah.
Was, you're chopping down these forests, chopping into mulch, bleaching the paper so it's pure white,
chemically bleaching,
and doing all this stuff. I mean, now there's more recycling. Recycling's more part of it. But in the late 90s, really the solution that would have saved, because paper prices skyrocketed and advertising went down. So all these alternative magazines, all magazines that were alternative voices in politics, comedy, and in film, including Film Threat, all went out of business in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a documentary about it right now. I mean,
you are?
Yeah. Well, I'm facilitating the making of the documentary. I'm not directing it. It's someone else is making the documentary, but it's about the rise and fall of Film Threat in the 90s, and it's called Film Threat Sucks. So
that sounds really cool, though. I mean, and I'm really happy because I'm really happy to see that it's back.
Oh,
so
thanks,
congrats
man.
on that.
I appreciate it.
I'm sure that's like keeping you super busy. I mean, are you still doing like juggling 12 fucking things all at the same time?
No. I mean, I try to be more focused, and I have like long-term projects, but it's like every week, a podcast, the content on the Film Threat
That's
website's
a lot by itself.
updated every day. I've got like sort of long-term projects in the works, working on another book. You have to, I mean, for me, I'm just bored working on one thing. So it's like, all right, work on the website for a couple hours, work on the book for a couple hours, work on the podcast a couple hours a week, I don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta produce. You got to constantly be putting stuff out, right?
You constantly
You're doing it right now with
I guess
hold this microphone
with the weed smokers.
Yeah,
right behind
exactly.
us.
Yeah. Wish you could smell this podcast.
So what is this thing here? This is a party for like
it's just
not Comic-Con.
It's a party. Else. Yeah, it's a party for a company that this is my day job. I work for a company called Gemmer, GEMR.com. And Gemmer is a collecting platform where you can buy, sell, and trade your stuff, and then also connect with other collectors. It's basically like Facebook meets eBay, but it's for nerds.
Okay.
So I'm totally sold. It's like something that I would be a customer of if I didn't work for the company. But we're having a Road to Comic-Con party. It's basically like, come here, drink and eat for free. Let's hang out. And
Nothing wrong with that, and smoke weed in the back.
Well, the drag is that a lot of friends of mine that I see at San Diego Comic-Con, I don't see in San Diego, right? Like, so, we were all from LA. It's like, where are you? I'm at this party. I'm doing this thing. I'm in that panel. Kind of spread her out. So I thought, well, let's do a party, the road to Comic-Con. We'll just, let's all get together for drinks.
It's a little pre-fun.
Little pre-fun before there's the real parties. So this is the pre-party, but this is a big, we have way more RSVPs than I think that, I don't know. I think we'll see. We'll see how
It's
crazy it
always
gets.
like that in LA, though.
Yeah,
it's hard to get
exactly.
people out.
Everybody RSVPs, and then half the people show up.
Maybe
That's
half,
just maybe half.
It's always
yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
What's the deal? You mentioned Comic-Con is not as cool. I've never been.
Well, it used to be. No, I think Comic-Con, I think the people who organize Comic-Con, I think it's a great event. The problem is it's been invaded by people that...
It's like a big Hollywood trailer kind of thing?
Yeah, it's been co-opted by the marketing powers that be at various television, film studios, and sort of offshoot things that have nothing to do with what the reason it was created. In fact, here's an interesting challenge. Go up to anyone that goes to Comic-Con now that calls themselves a Marvel or a Star Wars fan and ask them if they have ever read a science fiction novel or how many science fiction novels they've read.
Crickets?
Fucking crickets. Like, yeah, I've seen all the Spider-Man movies. Fuck you.
Punch him in the throat?
Yeah. No, but look, I mean, there's a lot of people that are
guys.
fans of the movies, but they haven't read the source material. They don't know anything.
They're not real hardcore.
They don't know who Steve Ditko is. They don't know that Spider-Man premiered in an issue of a magazine called Amazing Fantasy number 15. So I feel like it's just been. There's sort of, it's a double-edged sword. I'm happy that geek culture has spread and become mainstream, but also it's brought in a bunch of fucking morons. So,
it's always like that whenever anything gets too popular, though.
I could be at Comic-Con back maybe 2005. I could turn to anyone and say, well, what did you think of, we get in a whole conversation about David Lynch's Dune, and we'd start talking about the books, and it's like, well, how many books did you read? Well, I read up to Heretics of Dune, the first 4 books. I read, Arthur C. Clarke when I was a kid, and, I read Frank Herbert, all the original Dune books, the original ones before it was his son and other people writing them. The first 4 books are, to me, the legit ones. But, I read the original Pierre Boulle novel that Planet of the Apes, the movie, is based on.
No shit.
The novel's completely different.
I didn't
in the
know
sense
about
that.
that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's 2 different things. There are... Because I was just in, this is the other thing, I turn up in a lot of documentaries. Like, if they need a nerd to sort of
an expert?
speak with authority on a topic, if it's something I'm comfortable, I don't know everything. I can't tell you about the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's a lot of things where it's like, I have gaps.
Yeah.
But I was just in a documentary about movie novelizations, which is really, because I used to read those when I was a kid, and the reason to read movie novelization, it was kind of like DVDs with extras before DVDs in this sense. The guy who was supposed to write the novelization of the movie would get a copy of an early draft of the screenplay and probably have 6 weeks to write the movie novelization. That's it. So they're including scenes that were in the original script but might get cut out of the movie.
Right.
So when you would read the movie novelization as a kid, like whether I read Logan's Run, which wasn't a novelization.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, William. Exactly. So there were deleted scenes, and it's like, oh, these are scenes that weren't in it. So there's 2 sort of types of movie novelizations. One based on the script, shooting script for the movie, and then there's another one where you have a novel, and what they've done is they've remarketed it with branding of the movie poster, so it's the Logan's Run movie, but it's based on the Philip K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which
Blade
was
Runner.
the source material for Blade Runner, exactly. But then they just put a different painting on it, right? It's so bizarre. But
what did you start? I mean, what
So-
got you? What did you get started out? Was it comic books? Was it books? Was it movies?
just
all at the same
everything.
time?
I mean, just like
were there
I-
key ones from each of those
I mean,
categories
there are definitely
that really did it
key
for you?
moments. Like, I was 5 years old. My dad took me to a retrospective screening of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Not a movie I recommend you take a 5-year-old to. Then I don't know. I was reading comic books, watching the Batman television series as a
Right.
kid in reruns.
Right.
And then it was just like everything, TV show, movies. I mean, I was addicted to everything science fiction. I mean, and And before, DVRs and VHS recorders, I was using a cassette recorder to record movies like King Kong, episodes of television shows.
Really?
I mean, that was like, and look, what's so funny is I'm not unique. If you talk to anyone who grew up in the 70s who was involved in nerd culture, we all had tape recorders. I would take my tape recorder into a movie theater to record the movie so I could listen to the music later. So
isn't that amazing? So
this is what a
if you were a
nerd, but-
kid in the 70s, though.
if you're a kid in the 70s, technology was
but you
very
were
unsophisticated.
You were
So
exposed to this so much amazing shit. Early
my mom
Spielberg
had to
stuff.
drop me off to. Luckily,
so
I lived
good.
2 blocks from a movie theater, the Berkeley Theater, and which was in Berkeley, Michigan. And I would walk to this theater, and they would show all these movies in second run. It was the Dollar Theater, so it was really fun to like go see. I would see movies like Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back 7 times in a summer or something.
Yeah.
So
that was
so
common. People don't. And I remember. Do you remember the lines for those things too?
It's crazy. Jaws, like that. So I saw those in first run as a little kid, which are probably like really traumatic, like now. But I don't know though. Like I mean, look, there are kids who have that have access to the internet that are probably 9 years old that know what double penetration is in porn. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
know.
Like
I
so,
wonder about
it's a different culture. Like, and look, kids absorb that stuff and they process it in certain ways. So who knows? Another experience I had, which I know isn't unique, is finding an abandoned copy of an adult magazine.
Right.
Why were they
It was
just
like in a
abandoned?
construction site.
It was like a construction site, or it was like hidden in the bushes, or
yeah,
like
exactly. In the woods for some reason.
In the woods, or like it was just like always like a club. It was just like, why did people abandon their porn? It was sort of like the porn fairy.
Where he found it, though.
It was like the porn fairy, like the tooth fairy. You would just find
maybe
porn.
some guys like kid's dad, like in the garage, maybe or something. Yeah,
But it's bizarre, like just seeing, like having these like similar experiences as a nerd. Hey, Bernstein, my friend John Bernstein, walking up.
He's mocking him.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, how's it going? How's it going,
Publicly
John?
mocking him.
What's up? I'm doing a podcast. This is Cam. Cam's
How are
John
ya?
Bernstein.
How you doing?
Yeah.
You wanna-
Yeah.
And, hey,
Oh, yeah.
welcome,
John
welcome.
Bernstein has an
I'm on a
amazing
podcast,
voice.
too. Hi, podcast listeners.
He has an amazing voice, John Bernstein.
What am I supposed to say? You have to ask me
Smooth.
something.
Well, I don't know.
Smooth like butter.
We'll explain your voice. You've done voice acting and voice work.
Yes, I have, but not so much lately. But yeah. Actually, I was on an episode or 2 of Space Goes Coast to Coast back in the day. Wow. Yep, and other stuff.
Like-
It's so funny. I would.
I'm in a parking lot.
All right.
I just pulled up to park my car, and here I am shilling for myself, apparently.
Well, hey, come on in and grab a drink. We'll
Yeah.
be there in a second.
We'll wrap it up in a second.
Yes, I will be there. It's good to see you, man.
Nice to see you. Nice
I'm
to
glad.
meet you.
Great to
Are
meet
you
you,
going to be
man.
at Comic-Con next week?
Don't know. So when's this getting posted?
I don't know.
Probably about a week.
Back, so
Probably
it'll
about
be
a
too
week.
late for people to give me a place to stay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God.
It's a shout out to Right
I went to
Account.
Comic-Con 14 years in a row, and this might be the first year that I won't be going. So
I've been going since '89 when I first moved to LA. And there was one year where I was like thinking about not going. And I drove down, and I slept in my car. Remember those where you just sort of pull and slip? Now it's just impossible. But
everybody talks about it being more crowded than ever, and it absolutely has grown. But I would say the biggest change in the last decade has been cell phones. Right now, everybody's in giant costumes with giant swords, and they're packed into there. But
Phones
instead
in
of
their
like 10 years
codpiece.
ago when they were actually looking at stuff, now they're actually looking either down at their phone or they have their phone in front of their face, taking pictures of the hot girls dressed in cosplay costumes.
or
It
they're
blows things way the fuck down.
or they're periscoping and taking selfies
Exactly.
to prove that they're there.
It's the cell phone that slowed everything down, and the crowds. But
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about. See, I'm like the old curmudgeonly like nerd.
hey, I'm
We were talking about like.
older than you
Well,
are,
Simpsons
we'll see. We'll
comic
see.
book guy.
I have no hair.
Well, we were just saying that like it used to be a day like in the back in the good old days of Comic-Con where you'd turn to someone at the bar and you'd start talking about science fiction novels. And I will say that like if you talk to Marvel or Star Wars fans now, don't ask them if they've read a science fiction novel. Ask them how many science fiction novels they've read, or do they even know for the Marvel movies that they're big fans of?
Right.
Did they read the source material? Did they know that Steve Ditko illustrated Spider-Man in the early days? That like Amazing Fantasy 15 was the debut
Pseudo-nerds.
of where Fantastic Four came from, influences of that, or just among other things.
Speaking
Like,
of which, I did go to D23, and I saw you had troubles getting into the panels. Did you point that out?
yes, I did. It was I was so
least you're honest about it.
annoyed. I was angry. No, I just did one post which I had to make funny because I can't just
And I
complain.
laughed, so mission accomplished, my friend.
Yeah, but I was like, why can I not get into this stupid thing? They have all these rules now for press. I was
yeah, but I made it into the Legends ceremony, so I did see the tribute to Jack Kirby, which was nice. And Stan.
I saw nothing. I saw not one panel, and I paid for a badge, and I also got a press badge. It was fucking awful. I plan to.
I assume you got kissed by Disney Magic somehow.
If you listen, no, not at all. I in fact, on the latest episode of the Film Threat podcast, which we just posted today, I totally shit all over D23. So.
Well, I as of last Friday, as you I think you know, I'm no longer at the House of Mouse, so I think I'm free to do that too now.
Cool.
I got my severance check. Come on.
Nice. Shit all over the mouse. Well, I'll see you in the party. We'll wrap this up. Yo, cool. Yeah. All right. John, who I met at Sundance. No, before that.
A long time.
And he does have a good
in
voice.
the 90s we met.
Good
yeah.
voice, John.
John has an amazing voice, but look, I'm not pissing on the modern fans. I think it's great. I just think it does help to kind of have that background to know the source material and to understand where this nerd stuff comes from.
Right. It didn't just come. It wasn't just like last week.
No, there were. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just.
But a lot of millennials don't know anything past 3 years ago, anyway. It's true.
Yeah,
I'm doing my curmudgeon.
I actually like millennials. You know, I think that
How dare
they're
you.
much more polite. I think they're. It's weird. There's sort of weird things about them I like and then don't like. But I think that in general, I think look, people shit on punks. When I was,
it's every
generation.
of
So
course.
I'm not gonna repeat the cycle. I think that millennials are in many ways can surpass and actually do better things than my generation has done, and I'm really excited to see because they have reasons to be angry for how the world is being shit on at the moment. You know, based on politics, based on how they've been treated in college, based on what the job opportunities and sort of the economics of the world and the way things are shifting. So millennials, I hope, will fix things
we talked about this I'm going to cut you off, but I mean, they seem to be dropping out more than they are kind of rising up. You talked about punk, right?
Yeah, but I mean, give it time.
Who's
No one.
the artist now, the millennial artist that's like really
Not
stepping
yet,
up.
not yet. Give it time. I mean, look, no one took me seriously when I was in my 20s. I mean, first of all, I looked like a gangly kid. I looked like I was about 15 years old till I was 30, because I just looked. I mean, I was late bloomer.
Kind of.
I'm sort of a young looking, and it's the Irish genes. It's the Irish. I like to say that alcohol acts as a natural preservative. But no, I was just I didn't really get taken seriously at all until I was in my 30s when I started to actually look like an adult. But I had written books and done so much stuff before that, but no one took me seriously. It was always kid. People would call me kid, which I was annoyed at. So I say, give millennials time and stuff's going to happen. I believe that someone will break out and there'll be a voice.
I'm waiting for it. I hope so. Because it seems like a generation of conformity more than rebellion.
Well, I think they're rebelling in different ways. I think in small ways that we need to do. We need to be.
Hopefully, there'll be a little more.
Yeah,
especially now.
Yeah, I think it's needed now more than anything. But I think that I see the. I like what I see so far. So please, please continue. Please continue. I will. I'm not going to make fun of millennials.
So we're about half an hour right now before we started. You wanted to keep it right around there?
Yeah,
let's get into the party.
Enjoy your drive time.
Before you take off, though, so you talked about a book. You talked about a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of rattle off some of this stuff for people. So Chris Gore is everywhere.
Look, just that Chris Gore on Instagram.
Is it filmthreat.com?
Yeah, filmthreat.com. You can look at filmthreat.com. You go to chrisgore.com. I don't know. Look up stuff about me and what I'm about. If you follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I promise that I'll entertain you and I'll plug other stuff. But if you like what you heard here, listen to the Film Threat podcast and check out my other stuff. And Cam, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. This was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
This was like a rapid fire 30 minutes.
Hard and fast, but
Wait,
really fun.
how do you end your show? What's your sign off?
Oh, I don't do that shit.
You don't do that shit?
No.
I don't do. Well, you know what's funny? We do it.
Hey nation.
Yeah,
or whatever it is.
I actually do it on the Film Threat podcast.
Disaster Nation.
But we do it in kind of a fun way where we end the show by saying, "Let's get out of here."
Oh, well, that's cool.
And
that's all right.
The reason we say it is if you look up "Let's get out of here," the just that phrase, it is the most used term in screenplays and in movies. In fact, if you just go to YouTube and look up "Let's Get Out of Here,"
I saw a video about that.
You'll see
Wasn't
a
there like
montage of a video, and I'm talking like from movies like from the 40s up to now. Like it's the most used phrase in movies. In television, what would you guess the most used term is?
I have no idea.
What's that supposed to mean?
Oh Christ!
I know.
Yeah. I can. That
Soap
makes sense.
operas,
That makes
dramas.
sense.
What's that supposed to mean? I mean, does anyone use that phrase in normal speaking? Like when you're talking to someone, have you ever used the term "What's that supposed to mean"?
Now without getting socked in the face, probably.
Yeah, it just seems like kind of a weird. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to.
I can tell that makes sense now that you mention it. It's like,
what's that
Christ,
supposed to
that's
mean?
like yeah.
I don't know. Why don't you just ask the question? Oh my God.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Good to meet you, man.
So that was Chris Gore, guys. Obviously, we had a fun time with that. I had fun with it. Hope you did too. So like he said, you can find him anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere at that Chris Gore. So at that Chris Gore, he's basically everywhere. And make sure to check out his Film Threat podcast. So just go to iTunes and do that. And while you're there, if you can go to the Triumph and Disaster on iTunes and just leave a quick rating and review, it really helps Apple to just promote the show. It helps a lot. It takes you just a quick second. I'll call you out by name if you'd like. If you want to remain anonymous, that's fine too. Just let me know. I'm happy to do that. And it just helps get the show bigger and better. And we'll be back next week. Triumph and Disaster. Thanks, guys.